Welcome to iOS by Example. I'm your host, Jonathan Rasmussen, and today we're going to take a look at the editor for building iOS applications, Xcode. Xcode can be downloaded through the App Store by searching for Xcode, coming to the download screen, and then clicking Install. You can download Xcode onto your machine. It's quite large, it's going to take a few minutes, but after doing that, you'll be ready to start building your iOS applications. When you first open up Xcode, you'll see a screen that looks something like this. To create a new project, click the Create New Xcode Project button, and you'll be brought to a screen that looks something like this. Here you can see we have a couple of options. The one we're going to mostly want is the single view application, which should be selected for you by default. Simply click Next, and here we get to enter a name for our project. Let's call this one Hello World. Note here, you want to make sure that you have Use Storyboard selected, use automatic reference counting, and for now we won't worry about the unit tests. So just click Next. It's now going to ask us where we'd like to store our project. The developer folder is a good place to put developer projects. So we'll stick it there and click Create. Here you can see we have a whole bunch of information. Let's start by clicking this file here called Main Storyboard. This is where we're really going to outline the different views and transitions and the navigation basically of your iPhone app. Storyboard is the file or the class or the pane that sort of tracks all that kind of stuff. On the left-hand side, we have something here called the navigator. Here we're going to see Objective-C classes. Objective-C classes for the view controller, which represents our storyboard here. Along the top, we've got a couple of different panes. This one that looks like a folder is the most important. That's called the Project Navigator. You've also got things for a symbol navigator, which I don't use too much. You've got search, if you want to search the entire project for a keyword. If there's issues, those will show up here. You've also got a debugger navigator. This will keep track of all your breakpoints, and a log file here. But really, it's mostly this navigator and this search that we're going to be using. So go back and click on that navigator, and to bring back a view of all the different files. Now what we're going to do here is we actually want to, on the right hand side here, you'll see utilities for different elements we can drag onto our view. For instance, if we wanted a label, we could click Label here, and what I'm doing right now is I'm holding down the mouse button and I'm going to drag that out to the screen. Whoops, that happened a little bit quickly. I'm going to do that again. I'm going to press down my mouse and drag this over to my view controller, and you can see different it's kind of helping me with alignment here. I'm going to let it go, and here I've got a label now on my screen, which I can put anything I want on. I can double click the label, for instance, and type hello. Something else that we use a lot in iOS applications are things called buttons. So again, I'm going to click that button. I can click it as many times as I want and drag out several buttons. If I don't like a button, I can click it or select it and hit the delete key, and it will remove it. Here on this button, I'm going to double click the button and enter the word tap me. Now if I want to see what my application is going to look like or what it's going to do, on the upper left hand corner here we have a run button. If you click that, it's going to compile your application, which you can see along the top here. Right now it's pre-compiling it. It's copying some files around, linking some things up. But what it's actually going to do when it builds successfully is it's going to launch a simulator. In this case, it's a 5.1 simulator. I'm on Xcode 4.3. And what it's going to do here is actually run our application in a very, very good simulator that's going to behave very, very closely to what an actual iPhone would look like. And this is a great way to test out your application and see that it's actually working. It takes a few minutes for the simulator to spin up here at first. Here it is. And you can see now that here's our application running in an iPhone. We have our hello label, the tap me button, which if I tap it, it doesn't actually do anything right now. So let's fix that. You can stop the simulator by hitting the stop button. And now we're going to get into the code and actually do some work. Just before we do, I want to show you a couple ways of navigating through Xcode here. These menu items on the upper right hand corner here, they control what gets displayed and what doesn't get displayed. So if I need a little more real estate, I can hide the Project Navigator pane on the left-hand side by clicking that. Likewise, if I want to free up this space, I can click this one here and hide the attribute or the elements pane on the right-hand side here. Now, something that's nice sometimes is you'd like to have the code up for the application that you're working in. And that's where this little butler icon comes in, this editor here. If you click that, Xcode will automatically bring up, as best it can, the code associated with the view controller you're looking at. So in this case, we have a view controller, which is already tied to this particular view controller here. And in this case, the Tap Me button. Now, every Objective-C class has two parts. There's what's called a .h file, called the header file, and there's a .m file underneath it. And the way I'm transitioning between these two is by clicking this viewController.h and this viewController.m. A shortcut key for doing this is Control-Command up arrow or Control-Command down arrow. And that will flip between the two, just as a little shortcut. Now actually what we want to do here is I'd like to have something happen when the user clicks that Tap Me button. In other words, I'd like some sort of action to occur. And so the way we do actions from our storyboard here into our code is we select the element that we want, and then doing a control drag, we drag that into our implementation on our viewController.m file. So I'm going to select that, hold down Control, and drag that into this implementation area of our view controller. And I want to see that insert action pop up. That tells me that this storyboard view controller is hooked up to its code behind view controller here. I'm going to let that go. And that's going to open up another little dialog here where I can enter the name of the action that I'd like to use to describe someone pressing that button. So in this case, I'm going to call it Tap Me Pressed. That represents the button pressed. Here we've got a type of ID, which is a generic object type in Objective-C. I'm going to tighten things up a bit by actually being a little more specific and selecting the UI button. And these other defaults are fine. Touch up inside means that's going to be a tap, and I'm passing the sender as an argument. I'm going to click connect, and it's going to create this nice little bit of code for me here, Tap Me Pressed. So now, this is where I'm going to put the code to handle the Tap Me button being pressed. That's basically what we're going to do here. Now what I'd like to see happen here is I want to change this label from hello to goodbye. But before I can do that, I need a way of getting my hands on that label. In Objective-C, we do that with something called a property. I'm going to go back to my .h file here. And properties are very, very popular in Objective-C. That's how we describe basically classes and objects in our code that we want to be able to get and set repeatedly. And they're used so often, in fact, in Objective-C that Apple's actually created some shortcut syntax to enable us to do this very easily. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the hello label here, which I've also stretched out, as you can see, and made it a little bit bigger just to give me some room. Just like with the Tap Me, I'm going to hold down Control and with my mouse drag that over to my .h file here, and that's going to ask me for the name of my property, which in this case I'm going to call this hello label. You can see here it automatically filled in UI label. It's going to create a strong pointer to that. I'm going to click connect, and there it created my label for me. It's strong. Non-atomic means I don't have to worry about anything thread safe. We're always going to have that for now. IB outlet is a marker for Xcode, which just says, hey, this is a special property that's marked up so that the storyboard and Xcode understands what it is, but it's actually void. It isn't doing anything. And then here's our label with the variable attribute hello label. Now, if I flip back to my implementation file, I'm ready to do something when the user clicks that Tap Me button. In this case, I can get at my label property by going self dot hello label dot text is equal to, and the way you create strings in Objective-C is you start them with an ampersand, and then you create your double quotes, and you put the string that you'd like to see within those double quotes. So in this case, I'm going to go goodbye, and with a semicolon. We'll just pretty this up a bit. And so now, if I was to run this, I could hit the run button here, like we've done before. I could also go product run up here, but there's also a shortcut key, Command R. So if we go Command R, that's going to run this code for me in my simulator. And after it's done building and compiling, and it's had no issues, it's going to pop open the simulator, and I expect to be able to hit that tap me button, and I hope to see it change from hello to goodbye. Here it is. Now let's come up, and if I click tap me, hello, goodbye. Excellent. There we go, our very first iPhone application to the store. That's basically all there is. I mean, there's a lot more obviously, but those are the basic mechanics we go through every time we want to build an iPhone application. We start with our storyboard here. We draw out our views and transitions. We drop in elements. We react to elements being pressed through code like this. And then we run it through our simulator and test just like this. So I hope that was instructive. That's just a very quick through of some basics in Xcode. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Till then.